This is the Hunt Quietly podcast. I'm Matt Ranella. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
How do I sound?
Crystal clear.
Love it.
I like your little room there.
Oh, yeah. Campaign headquarters now.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So is this your first run for office?
It is. First run for thing. I just switched microphones just to see. I went to my Bluetooth device instead of my computer. Tell me what sounds better.
Oh, I like the other one better.
Okay.
So you didn't start out as a state politician? Is that something people usually do? Not always. I'm thinking of several politicians here that didn't.
I think there's a healthy mix of folks who, their goal in life is to be a politician, and some like me who just stumble into it and decide that it's time to try and step up and make a difference.
No, I just meant is the normal trajectory to be in the state house or the state senate first and then run at the federal level?
Yeah, probably. I think the number of people who run for a federal office first is pretty small. I think most of those candidates come through the state house at some level.
Okay. So yeah, give the people give my mom and the other three people listening a sense of your background.
Yeah. Well, I'm currently running for state assembly, which means here in Wisconsin by statute that I'm on leave from my day job, which is a conservation warden for the DNR.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, so you're running for the House of Representatives, right?
Yeah, we call it our state assembly. It's the equivalent of the House of Representatives.
You are running for state office, not federal office.
Correct. Yep.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. So I'm running for the state assembly here in Wisconsin. And by state law, that means I'm on leave from my day job as a conservation warden with the DNR here in Wisconsin. And I've been doing that since 2017. And before that, I was some variation of a firefighter or a paramedic for most of my adult career.
I see.
In 2023, I became our union president, representing all the conservation wardens and forest rangers here in Wisconsin, and that's the closest thing I've ever done to elected office.
I see. Okay. What inspired you to potentially dip your toes in politics? I guess you're dipping your toes in politics, whether you get elected or not, but.
Yeah, for sure. I guess I was always raised that if you ask more than 2 or 3 times who's going to step up and do something and nobody raises their hand, it's probably time to look in the mirror.
And I wish more people were raised that way,
Right?
Because there's a lot of apathy in the world, I think, that I perceive.
There is. And some of that, I think, comes from people who just feel that their voice doesn't matter, or no matter how hard they try, they're not going to be able to move the needle. And sometimes I understand that.
Yeah. Do you know about my friends and mine, the hunting nonprofit called Hunters for Access?
I wasn't aware of it before just a few weeks ago, and I am peripherally aware of it now.
Okay, yeah. So what we do is we show appreciation to landowners that are enrolled in state-run access programs that allow public hunting, of which you have multiple in your state. I can't remember the name. Oh, you know about them because you're former.
Yeah. We have
kind of former, kind of current game warden. What are they
Yeah.
called? Those
Technically, it's a conservation warden.
No, I meant the programs.
Oh, sure. We have VPAs here, a voluntary public access program. Uh, in At full disclosure, I think it's only been moderately successful, might even be an exaggeration.
Okay. Well, maybe let's get back to the I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just making a note of that. But God, what was I gonna Oh, what I was gonna tell you was getting back to the apathy is that we have chapters in several states, but the guy that kind of like started all this was my dear friend John Kuntz here in Montana, and he calls them shoulder shruggers. People
Sure.
that see that there's a problem but don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, what you gonna do?
Yeah. There's
And
enough of them to go around, and it's folks that are always shouldering in and picking up the work that are making it so that those people are able to get along and go along.
what do you think about this? That you should identify the biggest problem you can and work on fixing that.
Ooh. Uh, Sometimes I think that drives people to that apathy because if you are butting your head against a cement wall, it's going to be a struggle. But sometimes if you pick a problem that is a little bit smaller in scale and move the needle a little bit, you start to find that you really can make a difference, and maybe then you work up to tackling the biggest issue.
Okay, I agree. Because I obviously agree, because there are obviously bigger issues facing society than high quality, publicly accessible, non-pay hunting, which is what I'm focused on.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, there's like a lot of slavery. There's a lot of human trafficking. There's a lot of genital mutilation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, warfare. That we're talking about something that affects 5% of Americans. So that bothers me quite a bit that I spend 15, 20 hours a week on this is my mode of giving back, you know? So I'm kind of torn by it because I recognize that there are much bigger issues facing society, and I could be trying to do something about those. But then I think, well, man, you got to tend the parts of the garden that you can reach, you know? So I'm of two minds about it.
Yeah, I think it's fair to work on the things that you're passionate about and that you feel like you can make a difference, and everybody's got their lane, and to acknowledge that this problem that I am working on isn't everybody's problem, isn't everybody's cup of tea, and other people have different issues. I mean, that's just empathy, and that's great. Like, I wish everybody had more empathy to understand that what's important to you may not be the most important thing in another person's life that day and that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe what you should do is just write down a list of problems and associate a severity score with each one. And then in a second column, write down the chances that you could do something about it. Okay. You with me so far? So you got two
With you.
columns. One's like, how bad is this problem? And then the other one is a numerical ranking or not just a score of some sort, numerical value that quantifies the chances you could actually have an impact. And then you multiply those together, and whichever one has the highest value, you do that.
Yeah, that seems like a very data-driven way to do it, and, I don't
You,
know. I think sometimes that would help narrow it down, but I think also sometimes that would keep us from tackling problems that we might look at and go, "This isn't worth my time." And I think some of the things that people like us have accomplished in our lifetimes, we might not have tackled if we'd have looked at that score first.
No less a figure than Ben Franklin helped one of his friends figure out whether or not he should move himself and his family for a business opportunity using that approach.
Sure.
Darwin used that approach to decide whether or not he should get married.
And I guess I'm not familiar with the success of Darwin's marriage. How did that work out long term?
Yeah, I don't know. Did he marry his cousin?
I do
Everybody
not know.
married their cousin back then, you know.
Sure.
I'm gonna pause for just a second. Okay, here we go. Yes, Charles Darwin married his first cousin Emma Wedgwood on January 29th, 1839. Man, yeah, everybody married their cousin back then. So crazy. You know what? Another thing about everybody believed in phrenology back then too. You know what that is?
You'll have to refresh my memory.
Well, it was this idea that you could tell stuff about people, like if you could determine traits, like their behavioral traits and intelligence and stuff like that by studying their skull.
Sure. Okay.
Um,
And maybe that's why we still collect bear skulls for Boone and Crockett trophies.
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
trace back to Darwin and his cousin in phrenology.
You know, the captain of the Beagle, you know, the Beagle, the ship that Darwin went was the naturalist on.
Yeah.
That guy was a phrenologist, that the captain of that boat.
Okay.
Yeah, and he examined Darwin and said he'd make a shitty naturalist.
All right.
Man, when I pulled up pulled up my web browser on my phone to look that up, I had what I looked up last on here, and I was just curious. Oh, I saw a picture today, and it made me curious of this little tiny antelope. And I was like, what's the smallest antelope? It's called the royal antelope. Have you ever heard of that?
No. What continent is this from?
Africa, West Africa.
Okay.
Another name for is the West African antelope. Holy shit, these things are tiny, man. 10 inches tall.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. They weigh like 6 pounds. Could you imagine?
It's like a little roadrunner, four-legged roadrunners.
Yeah. Yeah. We got fox squirrels around here that big.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, there's some
Wild.
doubt. I don't think there's a 5-pound fox squirrel, is there? Probably not. But man,
Probably
that's
not.
so crazy. You know? And you look at the picture of him. I watched a little video one rutting around doing his thing. It's just like you're watching a deer. You know? But it's tiny. Oh, now you're
Oh,
looking
yeah.
it up.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
It looks like a little desert rat.
Oh, I think it looks like a tiny deer. It acts like a little tiny deer. I can see what you're saying. It's a little bit rodent-like.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we got 2 hanging chads. As I see it, let me know if I'm missing any, but the 2 that I can recall are that we want to dive into what led you to run for office.
Yeah.
And we want to talk about your dissatisfaction with VPA. It's interesting it's called VPA because that's the federal farm bill program that funds a lot of these.
Right.
The Voluntary Public Access Habitat Improvement project. I don't know what's going on with that because it's part of the Farm Bill, and like, isn't it, do you know what's going on with that?
I know a little bit, probably just enough to get myself in trouble. The Farm Bill hasn't been essentially rewritten and reauthorized in quite some time, so they're operating on a really old Farm Bill.
Like a continuing resolution.
That's the way I understand it.
But there's some weird thing where they voted in a huge increase to VPA HIP, but I guess it doesn't get instituted until the Farm Bill passes or something. But there was a big hubbub that it got like a $50 million increase in funding, but it like I say, it wasn't put into place because the Farm Bill didn't pass. I don't know.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I podcast with some people from your state that work for the same agency that you do.
Sure.
That work on that program.
Great.
All right, so now that we're into it this far,
Yeah.
I'm stripping from you the choice. You have
Yeah.
to address VPA first, and then I want to hear what made you decide to run for public office.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin's unique when you compare it to the Western states as far as our public lands and private lands go, right? Like, we have a fairly large ratio for an Eastern state of public to private lands when you compare to Pennsylvania or others.
Is that like because just the geography of it? Like, there's a lot of land that's not suitable for agriculture.
Well, that's part of it, and the other part that we need to put a pin in or hanging chad is the Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Fund and our conservation legacy here in Wisconsin. So we'll circle back to that for sure. The VPA program in its current form has existed in a relatively short time in Wisconsin, and it actually I believe it came about as part of a program that came out of the Sporting Heritage Council, which I was on after it was created back in 2011. But ultimately, what's happened is there's been a relatively low participation rate, and most of the land that gets enrolled in it has been relatively low quality, at least in the southern half of the state where I'm at, and I'm in the driftless area. It's been relatively low quality. A few of the better parcels have been adjacent to existing public land. And what we see is a few 40, 60, 80 acre parcels that were uh, essentially low quality and weren't good ag lands that people were enrolling in. I just haven't viewed it as a overwhelming success. There's been a few planted dove fields in this part of the state that have been in VPA, and those have been relatively high quality. But it doesn't take long. We're not too far from Madison and Milwaukee and some metro areas. It doesn't take long to hunt out a 200 acre dove field.
What's a planted dove field?
They have they'll leave some sunflowers or milo or corn standing nearby to just attract try and hold some doves.
Is that just something that the landowner does out of the goodness of their heart?
No, that's usually part of the VPA program, and I'm not terribly familiar with all of their regulations and how they administer that program. Usually, it's a cooperation with, in our area, like the county parks program.
I see. Okay.
So I think ultimately it just hasn't been that successful. Most of our access lands are either state or federally owned here in Wisconsin, and we have a fair amount in my part of the country because we're in the driftless area and the topography is steep. We see a fair amount of NGOs and conservation groups like the Prairie Enthusiast and the Nature Conservancy that have pretty good tracts of public land that are open or privately owned land that are open to public hunting access.
Okay, because they're in some kind of easement that requires the landowner to provide access.
Yeah, so
and in exchange they get a tax break or
actually we'll get into maybe the nuts and the bolts a little bit. Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Fund here in Wisconsin has been around for several decades. And what it
Who are
does
those
is
cats?
oh, I got my sources here because I knew I was gonna get asked that. And it's been, this program's been in existence, for several years. We'll put a pin into who they are. I'll
Okay, if
circle
you
back to
want,
that.
I can always pause too. You know. So
Yeah, we'll get back to it in just a
okay,
second on who they are.
okay.
1989. So it's protected 750,000 acres since then, and what they do is on bond issuing. So the state will issue 20-year bonds so that they can borrow to buy conservation land and spread that payment back. And in essence, it costs every Wisconsin resident about $11 per year, which includes paying back the debt service. So when those lands are bought by a prairie enthusiast group or the Nature Conservancy, they're required to match the grant. So the state's dollars go
Whoa, I'm
far.
getting a little bit lost.
Yep.
You
Sorry.
gotta explain this to me like I'm in fifth grade
Yeah,
and from another country.
sure. So the state the state will authorize in a budget historically, for example, in the last budget, our governor asked for $100 million to fund Knowles-Nelson, which is more than it's ever been. But it's easy math, so we'll stick with the 100 million. So let's say that Matt Ranella and his podcast want to protect 100 acres of land. They want to buy it and put it into a conservation easement. So you go to the state and you apply for Knowles-Nelson Stewardship funds. And you say, this land is going to cost $1 million. The state says, great, we will authorize 500,000 and you have to match 500,000. So if you get that grant and you buy that land, then part of that Knowles-Nelson rule is that it must be open to some form of hunting and fishing unless there's a very, very special reason to close it, which is almost non-existent that those places exist. So that when I talk about issuing bonds, that what that means is just that the state can borrow money to fund those purchases
I
and then
see.
spread it out over a 20-year repayment like a mortgage.
Okay.
So,
Could you also I own the land already and I want to enter into one of these deals. Could I do that as well? Is that another mechanism by which the land could be enrolled in this or
yeah.
become part of this thing?
So you could, I mean, if you had the means to simply donate your land, you could donate it to one of those NGOs. But more often than not, what happens is Matt wants to retire from farming and his kids don't want to take it over because it's really difficult to be a farmer, a small farmer, but you don't want that land to be developed. So you reach out to the Nature Conservancy and say, "Hey, I'd like to donate my land." But
I see.
you need you need to retire, right? That's your retirement income. So let's say it's worth $1 million, but you're willing to sell it for 500 because you still need to retire because you're not a wealthy man. That's where this Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Fund comes in and helps purchase that.
I see.
Now,
Okay.
if
Okay. Yeah.
if you
That's
simply
clear.
had the
Now
mean
I'm with you now. And I get the
yeah,
bond thing too. That
great.
makes sense. Okay. Sorry.
Uh,
I'm a little slow.
yeah, we're good. It's complicated. Uh,
My podcast caters to a low mean intelligence audience, you know.
I well, now I know how I wound up here.
All
So
right.
we have this program, the Knowles-Nelson, that helps us buy land, to protect it and give public access. And that usually results in some really high quality lands being open to public access, as opposed to 60 acres of chisel plowed field that somebody could enroll in VPA.
I see. Okay. That's cool.
And here is where this starts to tie into why I'm running for office. So we had a few years ago was a Pelican River project, and I'm gonna get to my numbers here so I don't get myself in too much trouble. So just recently, in fact, within the last few days, we've been hoping that our Knowles-Nelson Fund would get reauthorized. It looks like it might be the end of this program in the state of Wisconsin because the Republican-led legislature cannot come to an agreement with the Democrat governor and the minority party to refund it. The Republicans want to authorize it at a level that does not allow for land purchases, but simply allows enough to quote unquote keep the program alive and do some maintenance work on some of those programs. So back in 2024, our governor sued the legislature, and this went all the way to the Supreme Court because
The state
it was
Supreme Court?
Yep, state Supreme Court. Went all the way to the state Supreme Court because what was happening was the legislature had the ability to anonymously object. You didn't even have to identify which legislator it was. Anybody in elected legislature could raise their hand and say, I object to a conservation purchase. So what happened was there was
And
this
that would
15
quash it right there?
it would hold it in limbo forever and essentially quash it.
Just
It just held it.
one.
Yep.
And
Just
how many
one. And
people are there that can do this, that wield this kind of power?
well, there's on the committee, there's probably around a dozen. But the way it works is any one of the 99 legislators or 33 senators, however many there are, could lean over to the people in the committee and say, we need to object to that. So essentially, you're looking at 130 people. So what happened was up north, up in the Pelican River in the northern part of Wisconsin, there was a giant conservation, one of the largest conservation easements that we as the state were hoping to acquire in the lifetime of this program.
Not
It got
acquire, but create, right? Like it wasn't already a conservation easement, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
They were
This was
trying to
all
create one. Okay.
Yep, this was all forest land in, active forest land, but, as I'm sure you're aware, the forestry industry is not booming. So this was
It was owned by a timber company then.
primarily owned by a timber company, in really high quality habitat. Pelican River and several wetlands, ran through it. So it was all lined up. The cost share was, the folks on the ground had gone out and found people to cost share this program and meet the 50% match, but an anonymous objection held it up. And what happened was after being held up for several months and maybe even 2 years, the governor found a way to go and find a federal program to make the conservation purchase. And uh, I'll choose my words. I don't want to make you have to bleep anything out here.
Oh,
It- Okay.
it's not a,
It pissed off. It pissed off the Republican legislature. So he bypassed them and he got it preserved anyway, without the use of any Knowles-Nelson funds.
Well,
And
why would
then-
they care about that?
Because their whole argument is it takes it off the tax roll. From development or forest use. But in this case, there was it was still allowed to be active forest land. The timber company just didn't want to own it anymore. They were still willing to work it and make it active forest land.
I see.
So they got mad about that. And that's when they started working to defund the program. Additionally, then Governor Evers sued them and said, listen, this money's already budgeted. Having the legislature block me as the governor from spending money that you've already given me is unconstitutional. It violates the separation of powers.
Wait, I thought he got the money from some other place.
The money comes from Knowles-Nelson, which the legislature authorizes.
Oh, I thought he got some federal money. I thought you were saying something about that.
He did. Yep. So he won on that one. He won and got it funded through a federal program.
Okay. So this is a different one.
At the same time, he said, I can't have you holding up my purchases. I want to. So on the right hand, he successfully got that conservation easement through federal funding, and at the same time, he said, "This is unconstitutional for you to hold up these state funds. I shouldn't have to go find a different source. You've already authorized this in the budget. You've told me we can do it, and the governor's job is to execute the budget and the law, and it's unconstitutional for you to stop that." And in a pretty landmark decision, our Supreme Court here in the state it is pretty evenly split between a quote unquote conservative and liberal, and it was a 6-1 decision. Everybody except for one person said, "Yeah, the legislature cannot do this. This is unconstitutional." So what that led to is essentially a hissy fit. The Republican legislature has picked up their ball and went home. And that's a large part of why they're refusing, literally playing out right now, refusing to authorize money for land stewardship purchases.
Okay. What motivates the gov? Is he a hunter or what conservationist? Both? What?
Uh, that's a good question. Tony Evers is our governor, and he is not a hunter or a fisher. He he seems like a kind old Uncle Tony who just wants to take care of what we have and make sure that it exists for future generations. He's a pretty low key guy. He reminds me of everybody's quiet, kind uncle. Uh,
Okay.
so his motivation is just to do the right thing.
So uh the people that he went against are all in a huff, and they're like, "Okay, if that's what you're gonna do, then we're just gonna do away with the whole thing."
Yeah.
And how does that work? If they don't agree on an amount to fund it for, then it just goes away entirely?
Yes. This program could cease to exist by June of this year if they don't figure it out. And June is a date that sounds like there's some time. The assembly, the state assembly, which is what I'm running for, is a matter of hours away from gaveling out of session and being done for the year until fall. So if it does not get approved in the next 48 hours,
In the next 2 days?
in the next 2 days,
Will you shoot
it's
me a
done.
text and let me know what happens there?
Yeah, right on.
Okay. Wow. What do you think's going to happen?
I don't think they're going to come to an agreement. It's so dysfunctional, and the the Republican majority has held the majority in both houses here since 2011, and there hasn't been compromise. They have taken their power and they've wielded it to get their way, and if they don't get their way, that's the end of it.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
So, what you laid out as their motivation for not wanting to play ball on opening up land is not the motivation at the federal level, where, and this is a nonpartisan podcast, man. But I mean, it's just so happens to be the case that it's people on
Yep.
the right that want to do away with federal lands, right? Okay, so
Yep.
in both cases, you have the right wanting to limit people's freedom to go places. But it sounds to me so far as if the motivation there in Wisconsin is just kind of due to a rift, whereas federally, it's like an ideological thing where people on the right just don't like public property. So the question is this: is there any part of this there in Wisconsin that's just that the Republicans there don't like public property?
Yes. I think the answer is absolutely, that is the root of the problem. Uh, there seems to be this distaste for public land, in the excuse is that it, quote unquote, "takes it off the tax rolls," but I think the root of the feeling is the same. There's this hatred of public land because once it's protected, then it's not available for extractive consumption, whether that's logging, forestry, mining, development. That seems to be the root of this drive.
You can't log
Uh,
it.
you can. There's our public lands get logged all the time, responsibly,
Okay, I
which may
see.
be at a lower profit.
Hmm. But you probably
But there's
can't mine it.
uh, correct. Uh,
Okay.
yes, that would be almost exclusively true. You could not mine any publicly owned lands.
Okay.
So I think to answer your question, I think the root of the desire to avoid public ownership and protection of land is the same. It's we don't like public lands, and I think the root of that issue seems to be that removes it from ultimately this extractive, consumptive use of forestry or development.
So here in Montana, that kind of thinking is very unpopular. The kind of thinking of the like the weak on public access, weak on conservation. And even though this is a very much a Republican leaning state, so much so that our congressional delegation has been instrumental in warding off these threats to federal lands, these proposals to sell off federal lands. So I'm wondering, in Wisconsin, where are the people on this?
Uh,
What do you think the people favor?
Overwhelming support for the stewardship fund. Depending on which poll you believe, upwards of 80%, sometimes as high as 95%. Our desire here in Wisconsin to have high quality public lands access, from state parks and camping to prairie restorations to hunting, fishing, and trapping, is overwhelming in support of this.
Well, then
Overwhelming.
that just shows how ideologically driven these people, these politicians are. They're willing to risk their position. Yeah,
Yes.
you almost got to kind of give them a little bit of credit, like to have that firm of a belief that they're willing to risk their position, risk their office.
Sure.
I'm basically
I,
I'm trying this out on you to see what what you say about
uh,
that line of argument.
yeah. It makes me question who they're working for, right? Like you can give them all the credit in the world for sticking to their, perceived value, but if you're a representative of the people and your value is so strong in opposition to the people that you work for, uh, uh, I don't necessarily give credit there because it makes me question who are you actually working for?
Yeah, yeah, I get that, and I think it's a very good point. If I was gonna argue against it, I'd be like, well, we don't have a direct democracy, you know, we have a representative democracy, and sometimes our elected officials go against what the majority want. But I mean, 80, 90% in favor of this,
Yeah,
and
it's overwhelming.
it's the right thing, you know?
This is not a 60-40. This is not
Yeah,
even
yeah, yeah,
70-30.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so sad. It's so sad.
That's not a representative democracy issue. That's a special interest in a working for the
Okay.
billionaire class
So
interest.
okay. Well, that's a whole other thing then. So it's not just that they're ideologically opposed to publicly owned land. It's that there's some commercial interests involved that like they that there's people buttering these politicians' bread, uh, and these people or companies or people or whatever, they don't like this because it's bad for they don't like the public access and the easements and stuff like that because it's bad for their bottom line. Is that so?
Yeah, I think a couple of the things we see play out as we speak here in the state and in our neighboring state of Minnesota, in the boundary waters areas. Right now, we're again trying to make sure that we don't have extractive mining on the edge of or in the boundary waters wilderness area. And we deal with the same thing with mining exploration in the Northwoods. Um, Additionally, an issue that has been fought over for probably decades plus at this point is Enbridge has several pipelines that come through northern Wisconsin, where a lot of our stewardship lands end up being because there's less population, there's more land available. So these Enbridge oil lines come through not just our Northwoods, but several tribal areas, native lands. So that's been a constant battle. And, it just seems that when you have an elected politician who's willing to go against a 90-10 issue, including a 6-1 Supreme Court ruling, and still fight against it, that somebody else is playing the tune on that fiddle.
Mm-hmm. So there's 3 reasons why Republican legislators in your state are opposed to these easements. One is that they're in a pissing match with the governor. 2 is that there's a lot of special interests that probably, fund their campaigns and stuff.
Yep.
And then 3, it just seems like people on the right are ideologically opposed to public public publicly accessible land.
Yeah. Yeah. So to put a bow on it, that's a large part in why I'm running. I mean, there's more to it, right?
But that's
There's
that'd be one of your signature issues.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So how does this work? You're not going to debate, are you? Are you going to have debates?
I would love to, but I doubt it.
Okay, who's your opponent?
His name's Todd Novak. He's been in office since 2014, and has been, I think, in government. He was an elected mayor before that, so he's been around a long time. I would be happy to have a debate. I think that's healthy, and that's how a race like this should run. Like this office will cover 2.5 counties, so there's no reason that we couldn't get in front of people and talk about the issues, and I'd be happy to.
Is
More
that something
likely,
that happens very often with state level
no.
races? Okay.
No, what we'll see, is a whole bunch of, dark money attack ads. That's
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
On
This is
YouTube?
on YouTube, we're close enough to Madison here that, we're in the Madison TV market, so there'll be TV ads, and I'll get I'll get attacked for being a crazy liberal for wanting to protect lands, which is funny because I was a conservative voting Republican for most of my adult life,
Mhm.
and now it in large part due to this issue, I'm running on the other side. I'm running as a Democrat.
Yeah.
So debates would be great. I would love to. We will certainly make that invitation, but I would be surprised if it happens.
Yeah.
Let's talk, if you don't mind, let's talk about how we fund conservation in Wisconsin,
Oh,
'cause this is a passion.
okay. Okay, yeah. Well, you already gave me a sense, right? Through those 2 dudes' names. I'm ass
Knowles-Nelson,
Yeah.
yeah, Gaylord Nelson was the one half of that. He was an early governor and a huge conservationist. I mean, in Wisconsin, our history is really storied, right? Aldo Leopold, Gaylord Nelson. I'm gonna take an F on remembering who Knowles is, but
Okay.
so
Um,
that's the
yeah.
program that largely funds our acquisition of land, but everything else is funded through user fees only. And when we look at states that have really successful programs, and I'm going to call out Missouri and Minnesota here, they fund on a sales tax, like a 0.02% sales tax that's authorized by referendum. Every 10 years, they reauthorize it. So you show up every 10 years and you vote, check yes or no. Are you willing to give 2/10 of a cent on every dollar you spend to conservation?
What were the states?
Minnesota and Missouri.
Oh, that's funny, man. I just had these guys on from Missouri and they were talking about this tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's been wildly successful, at least from my view, from the outside looking in. Like that's what I would love to see, because what we're doing is we disproportionately punish people who hunt and fish when it comes to getting access. You got to buy your state park sticker to get in the door at the state park if you want to hunt there. You got to register your boat.
Or if you just want to bird watch, though, right?
Right. But if you just want to bird watch, you just buy a state park sticker. But if you're a hunter, you buy your state park sticker, you register your boat, you pay your excise tax on Pittman Robertson when you buy your gun and your ammunition, you buy your hunting license, you buy your pheasant tags, you get your pheasant stamp, you buy your waterfowl stamp. So disproportionately, they're just hammering on us that hunt and fish.
It's like this idea that there should be a backpack tax. You ever heard about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not opposed to it, but a backpack tax is no different than, well, it is a little different. It's targeted.
Well, it
But
seems
if
like
it's a
you'd
plain
be, based on what you're saying right now, it seems like you'd be supportive of a backpack tax.
Oh, I would.
Yeah.
I just think that, that a system like Missouri and Minnesota do is just more inclusive. And rather than trying to pick off around the edges and say, "We're gonna tax your backpack and your kayak," why not put it on wholesale across the board?
Ah, right,
0.02% sales tax, collected across the state.
right, right. Yeah, I can
And
see that. I mean, there's even if you were like a couch TV watching devotee, like you
Yeah,
never go outside. I mean, there's always going to be all kinds of public services that each individual person doesn't benefit from, right? You know what I mean?
right.
Matter of fact,
But
those people might cost taxpayers more because they don't get outside, so they're less healthy.
and I think there's an argument to be made that says that, uh, conservation and protecting natural resources does in fact benefit everybody.
Everyone, yeah.
Yep. And why should the person buying a backpack and a hunting license pay for it, but not the person buying a yacht?
Okay.
And maybe a yacht's a bad example. That might actually get you into Dingle Johnson Act money.
Right, right,
So
right, right,
let
right.
let's wash the yacht example.
Yeah.
Uh, if you have the ability to buy your own island, and a jet, which now your jet is entirely, tax deductible, but you own a private jet. Well, guess what? You should be helping to pay for us purchasing public lands for little guys like you and I to go out and go squirrel hunting on. That
Mhm.
that's where that's where I don't the backpack tax is a Band-Aid, I think, but ultimately, if you have citizen-led referendums where everybody shows up and votes and said, "Yes, I'm willing to give 2/10 of
I
1%."
mean, that's pretty easy to get behind. Like if
Yeah,
do you think the good people of Wisconsin would get behind something like that?
I think it would be overwhelming in support of,
Well,
but
if the like 90% of them are on board with the conservation easements.
yes, we'd be overwhelmingly in support of, I think. However, here's the obstacle we have to overcome. The current legislature in power will not let us have citizen-led binding referendums. They refuse to allow it. And you mentioned it earlier. It's because they say it's a representative democracy. You shouldn't get a one-to-one voice. That's what you elected us for. So they refuse to let us have that binding-led citizen referendum. And that is what's
Man, that's
holding us
pretty
up.
top down. That's pretty top
Absolutely.
down.
Yeah.
Um Yeah, that sucks. You
It
know,
does.
I've been just curious. Like, there's a lot of people that think that. And I try to not be political on here because then I just lose people. There's a lot of hunters they skew Republican,
Yeah.
but it's like, what if somebody ran for president on we need to limit presidential power platform, you know? I could see probably wouldn't work in the primary, but if you had won the primary, you might win a general election on that. And it seems like, in a sense, that's what you're talking about here. You're saying, let's nudge things a little bit more towards uh direct democracy. You'd
I
be like,
think
you kind of would be, if that's part of your your platform, your, like, what you stand for as you run for office. You're kind of flirting with limiting your own power a little bit, which I think is laudable.
oh, they can have it. Uh, you know, when
That's
you
awesome.
when you say, the that you try to not be too political or political at all. I get that. Like, I never in my life sought this out. And I have been on both sides of the aisle, and I would be the first to tell you that I would I would wash my hands of this in a heartbeat if I felt like things were going right and we were being
Mhm.
taken care of.
Yeah. So do you
Uh,
care about this so passionately because you interact with the public, the hunting and fishing public a lot, or because you're a sportsman, or a combination of the two, or
it's a
yeah,
combination
what
of those.
motivates you, like, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it's a combination of those, and also having been inside the government as an employee, I see how screwed up it can be and how inefficient it is at times. Like, we can do so much better. Uh, and I think over my career in public service, whether it was as a firefighter or an EMT or paramedic, or now in law enforcement and conservation law, I get to go into people's homes, and I don't choose, and they don't choose oftentimes when or how that happens. So what's unique, I think, about my perspective is I get to go into the most economically depressed house in the most economically depressed corner of the poorest town in the poorest county in my state. And 6 hours later, I might be on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I think sometimes how our communities have changed, not everybody gets that interaction where they get to see and have a view of what their neighbor, quote unquote neighbor across the county, what their life looks like. So it's one thing if you live in a $750,000 house and you get to take guided elk hunting trips. But if you've never been in a trailer home where three people live and work two jobs and seen that they don't have food in the fridge, that's a perspective that you are going to struggle to emphasize or empathize with.
Mhm.
So I think a large part of my motivation is just seeing that we can do better, and that opportunity exists, and having the perspective of knowing what life is like across that socioeconomic spectrum in the area that I would serve, I think is really unique. And I just think we can do better. And I want to do better, not just for me, but for my kids and my neighbors' kids and our natural resource. I mean, Southwest Wisconsin and this driftless area is incredibly beautiful, but we're popping up giant solar fields and huge transmission lines and giant wind turbines in some of the most beautiful area in the country. And now we're seeing giant data centers wanting to come in, and we can turn this land for a buck. We can.
What do you mean? You can turn it for a buck?
I mean, we can take this land and we can put data centers on it. We can put giant wind turbines on it, and somebody's going to make a buck off of it. Probably a corporation, not the community, but a corporation or a billionaire is going to make a few dollars off of it.
Okay.
But it's much harder to go back. Once we develop this, once we destroy those resources, it's really, really difficult to get them back.
Well, I'm not aware of any cases where there's been a rewilding of anywhere on the planet on a like anything but
Right.
the most trivial of scales, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So we're seeing those projects come in, and we're seeing them get approved, and we're seeing them implemented with very little local voice and local control. And I just truly believe that we can do better. We can do better for our communities, and we can be competitive and have an economy that, you know, works for everybody while not destroying our landscape. We can do both.
Where should they put the wind farms and the data centers?
That's a great question. I would prefer that it's not on the small farmer's back 40 who's trying to scrape out a living, milking 130 cows on land that their family's owned for 200 years.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to make you sweat a little bit.
Yeah,
Where should it be then?
yeah.
Or should
That's a
there
great.
not be? I'm
No,
open to that too.
we. I, I mean, there's an argument to be made that maybe we could have a lifestyle that doesn't have it. I think that genie is probably out of the bottle, and it's really hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah,
I think to
yeah, yeah.
to be realistic, I think we're going to need to generate power, and we're going to need to move power. Uh, but we shouldn't be doing it in a way that destroys our local landscape and destroys our local community, and then doesn't even come back and pay for the wear and tear on our roads.
No,
Right?
I just can't help but think about questions like the one I asked you, but I'm completely on
Yeah.
board with
It,
what you're saying. You know, I don't know what to do about the energy one. Like,
do you know what a NIMBY is? You
yeah,
ever heard of
not in
NIMBY?
my
Yeah.
backyard. Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, like, I don't know what the energy one is a tough one. You know, maybe something will get figured out. And maybe we'll figure out fission. Or like, I wonder why. I don't know. I don't know why nuclear isn't a thing. That doesn't take up much space. I know there's some dangers there, but it seems like we could work that out. And then, like, I got to spend a few minutes looking into this data center thing because I hear about it all the time, and I don't understand how that takes up a tremendous amount of real estate. Is it that they take up a lot of real estate, or is it that they take up a lot of power?
It's all the above. They're putting one up over towards Lake Michigan, and like the facility itself or its footprint is like several hundred acres, which it to a Montana guy probably doesn't mean a lot. Several hundred acres in the metro area of Milwaukee is insanely big.
Oh, in the Midwest, you can spend your whole life hunting on 10 acres.
Right.
If it's the right 10 acres.
Right. Um, but yeah, they take up a fairly large footprint. They use a lot of resources in the form of both water and power, and that's part of the conversation. Is the data center itself drives the need for more wind turbines and giant transmission lines. So it's all kind of interconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I won't disagree with anybody. I won't put up too much of an argument that we need power. We need to move power for our lifestyle. But I don't need Chat GPT to write my English paper for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's very difficult to predict the future right now. I always think that predicting the future is devilishly hard. But
Oh,
right now, holy shit. It's just like what this AI thing is going to do.
well,
I don't know.
I feel pretty safe in this prediction. It's overwhelmingly not going to benefit you and I and the people listening to this podcast. it's going to benefit people like Elon Musk and a few tech billionaires. That they're going to
Well,
come out looking great.
you're a little more epistemically confident than me. Because, like, I could just see where, I don't know, maybe the AI figures out how we can just be brains and vats, you know? And you don't have any actual physical experiences, but you're just like, did you ever read Plato?
Oh
Like the
gosh,
like the
20
allegory,
years ago.
like the allegory of the cave.
Yeah, that's the
That's one of the Platonic dialogues where it's about these guys that are down in a cave, and there's a parapet down there, a wall, and there's these images that are projected onto the wall, these shadows. They're kind of like foreshadows a film, you know, and that they think that's real. And then this one dude crawls out of the cave one day and goes and sees that there's this material world out there, and comes back and reports it to these people, and they think he's full of shit. They think what's real, what has real true existence, is what's being projected on that wall. And this is like, what if they could figure out a way where you could just have whatever experience you want pumped into your brain chemically? You wouldn't, now you're not hardly using up any resources, certainly not as much as the average American uses up currently, right? You know, you got like beautiful women all around you, and there's a 6-point bowl, and you whack it, and you're drinking 5 margaritas without a hangover, you know? And if AI were to facilitate all that, then I could see it benefiting
I don't
guys
know,
like
man.
you and me. So
I think
hey, I'm not saying that's all going to happen. I tend to agree with you, but I'm just not as confident. Like, you're like, it won't benefit me, you
I'll,
know? I just think
I'll
that,
chase that I'll chase that rabbit down the hole a little bit. Uh, I I don't know. I mean, I think given the choice, I'd still say no thanks. I'd rather whack a branch with an arrow shooting at the 6-pointer and then wind up taking a spike. I'd rather get the hangover. I
yeah,
want the
but
hangover. I want to miss the bowl.
okay, but they can build failure into it too. Like, you want to
Yeah,
have the sensation of having failed for a long time, and then ultimately be successful. They just add a little bit more of this and that, and you're there.
fair enough.
You know,
I feel
I know I don't mean to talk about a bunch of, I like philosophy quite a bit, but
yeah.
there's like they're the like the British, these British philosophers, like like Locke and Hume and Berkeley. They thought a lot about what what has true existence, you know, and how can we be sure that there is a material world out there bringing these things, these sensations about within us. And they went to their deathbed very, very, very suspicious. And there's still a lot of people that, like, how do we think that we're like directly accessing the material world through our eyes and know? I mean, you know, it could be our connection to what's really going on in reality is a little bit probably more nebulous than we think it is to begin with, you know? So I'm a little bit open to the idea that, okay, well, if we don't really even know what's going on out there anyway, why not just set it up so that I have whatever I want?
Well, It sounds like you're gonna do great selling AI.
I'm not. I'm just throwing this out there.
Yep.
I'm not I'm not like, only thing I'm taking issue with is the ideas that we know it's going to be bad for us.
Sure.
That's
Fair.
what the only part, the little bit of departure I have with you
Sure.
on that.
We don't know anything.
I think it's going to be terrible for us, but I'm just not. But everything I just like, I just assign when I think about things like this about future events, because I believe that the future is hard to predict. I just kind of assign a likelihood or assign a probability to things. I never say with any like that I am certain that X will obtain or Y will obtain,
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That was a big freaking like stupid ass speech. I'm sorry I bothered with you with that. I need to be more practical. This is a haunting podcast.
That's gonna keep me up for a while now.
Is that a Laker you got back there behind you?
That's a fish my mom caught in Alaska.
What is it?
Uh,
I can't see it real clear.
well, you're gonna help me identify it now. This is what you do.
No, I'm a plant biologist.
Oh, you're a plant biologist.
It's not.
It's some kind of freshwater run trout.
A steelhead.
Probably.
Yeah, it's a steelhead. Like it's an anadromous rainbow trout. Those are some lunkers, largemouths you got there. Are those yours?
Yeah, those are from Missouri. I'll tell you a funny story about those. I was at Table Rock Lake down in Missouri, and I was like 10 years old on a family trip. And I walked down to the lake with my bait caster and a plastic worm, threw it a couple times, and it was spring spawn. You could see them sitting on the beds, these big old females. And there was also a bass fishing tournament going on at the same time. So these guys are out there in their, fancy, sparkly bass boats. And they see the same fish, and they're casting everything they can, try to get those fish. And I waited about 5 steps out and flipped over a few rocks and caught crawfish, put it on my hook, cast it out and landed that big one. And those guys were pissed off, and they threw their rods and they turned around and started the boat.
They were mad?
Oh, they were so mad. So mad. So I took that fish up and I took it up to the freezer in the condo that we'd rented, my parents had rented, and I put it in the freezer knowing I was going to mount it. And I went back down to the lake and caught another one, the smaller one that's on there, and I carried that back up. And at that same time, my mom had walked back. She'd been grocery shopping. She opened the freezer. This has been 30 minutes or so. She opened
How old are you?
7, 8, 9, probably.
Okay, but you just in your little brain, you're like, these are getting mounted.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All I ever wanted to be when I was a kid was a Bassmaster. I was a junior Bassmaster member, and I thought bass fishing was the world. So Mom goes to put the groceries that she bought in the freezer. She opens the door, and that fish flopped right out of there and landed on top of her arms or whatever groceries she had, and you heard that scream.
Oh, I bet that would scare the shit out of me.
Oh.
Like if you're not expecting it and you open the fridge and a fish flops out,
So I made my parents drag those fish frozen in the cooler back from Missouri all the way back to southern Wisconsin. There they are today.
Are you a big angler still?
Not so much. Reconnected a little bit as my kids have started to enjoy it.
How old are your kids?
I got 2 girls. They're 12 and 7.
Oh, and they like to angle?
Yeah, we like to go, we have the Lower Wisconsin State Riverway in my backyard, public land, protected river, and we'll go out.
Oh, it's a river. Okay.
Yep, with a lot of public land, and you can camp on the sandbars with, just wild camp. No.
Oh, hell yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, we do. We love to go out there and just soak worms, suckers, and walleyes and catfish, and there's no limit. No limit to what you get.
Oh, yeah, there's no limit to what you get, but there's a limit to what you can keep. Right?
Yeah. Yes.
Matter of fact, you've been instrumental in enforcing that.
Yeah, we have a pretty cool. That river's pretty cool. There's a sand sturgeon, shovel nose sturgeon population on there. That's really fun.
Oh, they have those. We have those here. I've never heard them called the sand sturgeon.
Yeah.
There are in the spring when the water's high, there are places on the Yellowstone where you cannot keep them off your hook.
Yeah. Yeah. Same here.
They are not good eating though, man.
I've never tried one. I've always said I'm going to try it and threatened to try it, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yicky. And
So
I'm someone that, I mean, I'm not a snob about fish. I eat a lot of catfish out of the river here, but those sturgeon are not delicious. I think there's other ones that are.
sure.
Like a lake sturgeon, I think is good, you know?
Yeah, we got sturgeon spearing going on right here on Lake Monterey.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
popular event.
So what the hell is going to happen with this mine in the Boundary Waters? It's like some foreign mining company too, right?
Yeah, it's probably the company from Chile, or Chile. I don't know, man. We've fought against this so many times, and every time we think we have it beat, somebody tries a backdoor way to open it back up to mining. And I, we said it earlier, man. Once that toothpaste is out of the tube, you ain't gonna push it back in. The Boundary Waters is a pristine wilderness, and it's one of the most, if not the most visited wilderness that exists in this continent. And it, once we destroy it, there's no getting it back.
Oh, it's iconic. I mean, I've never been there, but I would fight tooth and nail to make sure, and I never will go there probably, but I still would fight tooth and nail to protect it.
Why? No. Let's drill down on that a little bit. Why are you not coming to the Boundary Waters? You wanna book a trip? We'll go. I got a
Oh,
friend in
like
Minnesota.
well, maybe in a few years. Like after I retire, all I'm gonna do is fuck around. I'll go
Okay.
everywhere and do anything, you know. So maybe, yeah. But
Okay. Well,
now I just have limited recreational time,
I
and
feel
I
that.
spend all year. I have pack llamas, and I spend all year taking care of my pack llamas. So when it's time to take my vacation time, I'm usually hunting with them, you know. And the wife lives on the other side of the state. So when we vacation in the winter, I like to go with her. You know,
Sure.
there's just like limits on my time, but I would, yeah, you're right. You're right. It's not assured that I won't go there. I'd love to try it. Try to, like make a trip over there and see all that as long as this company doesn't mess it all up. It's like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with Wisconsinites, man? They should be like outside the Capitol being like, we don't want mining on our, you know, cherished natural area. And we want places to go.
Yeah.
Why aren't they storming the Capitol? Not storming.
Well,
Let me take that
to
back. Let me take that back. Why
no.
aren't they peacefully protesting outside the state
To
capitol?
Yep. There's generally a pretty big response to the Boundary Waters attacks. So the Boundary Waters doesn't actually touch Wisconsin. It's only in Minnesota. But
Mm, that's right.
we
Okay. But it's right there.
there's a coalition of people, users, Midwestern folks that stand up. This particular attack came out of left field, quietly and from nowhere. We thought we had beat this 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we celebrated that it was over and done for our lifetimes. So the fact that somebody's coming back now and finding a backdoor way to potentially reopen this mining discussion, it is really beyond what anybody anticipated.
Okay.
So there just hasn't been time for that response to really spin up, and there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Yeah, yeah.
When we talked about the hierarchy of problems, it's especially in Minnesota. Minnesota's been having a fair
Oh
amount of
boy.
attention and struggle,
Yeah.
regardless of, how you feel or where you land on it. It just hasn't been, uh, in the front of folks' minds as much as I wish it was.
Oh, so you talked about you laid out some of the prevailing political viewpoints in the government there. Is your opponent emblematic of the politicians that don't value public access and public property?
He's voted with that crowd every time.
Okay.
I think the guy I'm running against just really isn't very motivated to do much of anything other than show up and toe the party line or the party vote.
Do you have a
Unfortunately,
chance? Well, you obviously believe that you have a chance of beating them, but what do you think your chances are?
uh, I think they're pretty good. If we do the work, it show up, and people I feel like are really hungry for somebody who's authentic, who, quite frankly, isn't a life politician.
How do you like with these kinds of races? How do you get your message out?
Yeah, there's two things I guess to begin with is you you just you have a good ground game and you go out and talk to people. You meet them where they're at.
How do
And
you do
then
that? You go to the mall?
we don't have them all in my district. 60,000 people is roughly what compromises a district, and from my house in one corner of it to the other corner is about an hour and 10 minutes. So it's a relatively sparsely populated district by Wisconsin standards, not Montana standards. Uh, I tongue in cheek call it the Brews, Barns, and Backroads tour. At the coffee shop, at the bar,
Do you
at the
host
feed store.
events or do you just go in there and start chatting people up?
Both, little both.
Okay, okay. And being that you're laid off from your job, you got plenty of time to do it.
Yeah, I got some part-time gigs that I do to pay the bills, but yeah, I have
Oh, okay.
plenty of time to do it, and
What are
I
your
have
what are your part-time jobs?
I work part-time on an ambulance and part-time as a police officer in a local little town.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Um, so part of my, I guess, connection is when you do the things that I've done, whether it's volunteer or professionally, you get to connect with people. Like I know a lot of people, and I like to think that they have some trust. Like I've established some credibility with them.
That's cool
So
because that goes both ways. Some people, some game wardens are not very popular.
yeah, I worked really hard to be fair to people. I had one guy who already told me, he said, "Listen, I would vote for you, uh, but I can't because I have a felony on my record thanks to you now." So
if the if the if the felon you convicted is warm towards your
well,
cause,
so
that's that's a ringing endorsement, even if
he
he
was
won't vote for you.
I asked him he stretched his story a little bit because it was a misdemeanor conviction, not a felony. He actually still can vote, but that was his statement.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, like if you treat people right, most of the time by the time we're done, most of the people I was dealing with were apologizing. "I'm sorry I made you do this."
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, man, I don't see how anybody could have like you just the way you comport yourself. It's just you'd be a hard person to dislike, and you know, I like what you stand for, and I think it's the right. I think it's the right thing for the future to be concerned about conservation and publicly accessible land. So I sure am rooting for you. You know.
I appreciate that. Now, I don't know how long you usually let these go, but I'd like to turn the tables a little bit. Can I
Yeah,
steer
sure.
for a
Yeah,
minute?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
I like, in my life, I was on our state board of directors for BHA, for backcountry hunters and anglers for a while. I ran a youth outdoor mentoring organization for several years as the state vice president. I sat on a governor natural resources board appointment on a council to work on R3. And about 5 years ago, I really burned out on it, and I quit listening to podcasts. I used to listen to Hale Herring, and I used to listen to The Meat Eater and several others, the podcasts in Blaston. I just burned out on it. just out of view, I finally just the other day hung up my shoulder-mounted deer again. For 6 years, they've been in the attic in my garage because I burned out and I didn't care. I got so burned out on the culture, the commercialized culture of hunting. And it wasn't until somebody told me 2 or 3 weeks ago, whenever I got in touch with you, I hadn't listened to a conservation or hunting podcast in 5 plus years. So I'm really intrigued and I really lit up when I listened to one before I came on this show. Uh, and I find it really intriguing, the hunt quietly theory or ethics or ethos, however you call that, in the conversation about R3 without a corresponding commitment to increasing access. That thought really intrigued me. And I'd like to just hear a little bit more on whether you think that R3 is wholly a wasted effort or a wrong effort, or if in cooperation with acquiring better public access, we should still have some efforts to recruit and retain and reactivate.
Well, I think to say that you're pro recruitment to me is to say that you're anti retention, and all of the R3 literature surveys bear that out. So I'm categorically anti-recruitment because my concern is high quality, publicly accessible hunting for the existing user group. And if we take the data seriously, even PR funded studies focused on overcoming barriers to recruitment, even those data show that, or barriers to R3, even those data show the recruitment is at cross purposes with retention. So I'm not anti R3. I'm anti R2. Like
Sure.
if somebody wants to quit, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, buddy, get up and dust yourself off and get out back on the horse." So I'm not. I'm like, I don't understand the reactivate. Somebody decides they like golf better, then God bless them. Go play golf, right? And then the recruit and then if you look at it's just what I mean. There's some things where it's just the more people that put in for a tag, the less chances other people have of getting that tag. It's a sum zero game,
Fair.
So I think that any minute that could be spent on recruitment could be spent on access and conservation. Like, build it and they will come. I mean, ultimately, so I see recruitment as a wasted opportunity. I don't think it's effective. I don't think that, well, certainly in my view, whatever agencies and nonprofits do to recruit hunters, the success of that, whatever it is, pales in comparison to the effect of media. Like, if what you really want is recruitment, man, you got it in spades. Just get on YouTube. Look at how many views these videos get. Like of my brother and people like that. Million freaking views,
Yeah.
I talk to people and chat, and message with people on a daily basis that got into hunting because of media. So when I say I'm anti hunting media as well, but as a fallback position, you could say, "Oh, I'm fine with the media. I like it." But why we would be squandering money and effort on recruitment that we could be using, because the recruitment thing in my mind is more than taken care of for free by the media people. Why are we squandering money on that? And effort on that when we could be working on conservation and access, which are the real challenges in my mind. So I guess that's in a nutshell where I come down on all that stuff.
Because we're user fee driven.
Yeah.
We just
What?
like that.
But
our
it's
agencies.
the need is met. I mean, PR dollars are higher than they've ever been.
I know, but the PR dollars so often are like, you can use them for R3, but you can't use them for these other things. And in a state like ours where everything is so user fee driven, our state parks, for example, we used to get GPR, general purpose revenue, which meant that some sales tax money went to help fund our state parks. That got axed several years ago by the guy I'm running against in his cohort. So they axed all the tax money that supported state parks. So now it's entirely user fee driven. So what we've done is we have allowed so many people through the doors of these state parks that we're destroying them. Because if we don't let enough people in to destroy them, we can't afford to keep them up. So now we're caught in this dog chasing tires. And what's happening is we're catching the tire. And it hurts. But now we're caught in this cycle of we're destroying our resources to try and fund conservation of our resources. And as long as it's entirely user fee driven, we're going to see it continue. We just don't know how to change. So
yeah, there's a mountain of data indicating that, not a mountain, but anytime a study sets out to establish a negative or a relationship between human disturbance and hunting pressure and reproductive fitness and wildlife life, they find a negative relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm like, and I just don't see deer as needing money. Like,
yeah,
deer just need to be left alone. I just don't think of the natural world as on life support and just needing like regular infusion of cash to keep. They just need to be left alone. They were doing great before we showed up. So I mean, the whole narrative that we need money to fund conservation. I mean, I don't. Or we need more hunters to fund conservation. There's only been one study on this that was done in 2015, and they estimate that about 5% of conservation funding comes from hunters.
Really? Do you remember what that study was? Where's the other 95? Where's that money coming from?
Like the Forest Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the BLM. I mean, that's
on a national scale.
Yeah, that's all federal tax dollars. Even PR is mainly funded
by target shooters, recreational shooters. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Somebody's got to, I just think that somebody should probably stand up make the case for hunt quality for the existing hunting community. Because nobody else is.
That's fair.
every institution, every company is partly or completely opposed to hunt quality and quantity for the existing hunting community.
It's become so commercialized. I mean, everybody there's so many businesses now dependent on selling food plot seeds here, and trail cameras, and internet-ready trail cameras, and a buggy or a UTV to go deer hunting, and a box blind to sit in.
Well, yeah, that's like kind of predictable that the hunting industry would want more hunters so they could sell more products. But even the nonprofits, I mean, they like BHA is my favorite example of this. If you look at their founding documents and their mission statement, it's all about the importance of solitude.
Yep.
And what do they do more than anything? Is try to trample on solitude. You know? Other people can like try to make the case that we need more money. I think that we need more quality.
And do you think that if we don't recruit new people into the fold, the existing resource, in particular public land that we have, is enough
Well,
without adding
okay.
more?
So we rebuilt wildlife populations that were at the brink of like extirpation in the 30s without hunter recruitment.
We had a lot less
R3, it wasn't even that term wasn't even coined until the 90s. I mean, for all of human history, it's been friends and family that recruited the next generation of hunters, not profit seeking like nonprofits in the hunting industry. I mean, yeah,
it's really hard.
I just think it's ridiculous, man. It all combined, the fact that the intense human pressure is deleterious for wildlife, that the fact that everybody that's like a R3 zealot somehow makes more money when there's more hunters.
Yeah, it feels like a vicious circle.
Yeah. There's just a lot of passion for natural ecosystems and wildlife amongst people that aren't even part of the user group. The vast majority of Americans oppose selling off federal lands. And the majority of Americans, I suspect, lived their entire life never outside of the site of a building, would be my guess.
Oh, I would guess that that's accurate.
And the majority of Americans like oppose drilling in ANWR. And I mean, what fraction of people are ever going to see ANWR? 2?
Right.
That seems high, you know?
Well,
and then there's no scientific evidence that turning somebody into a hunter makes them a happier person. There's all kinds of evidence that getting people to eat right and exercise, and that makes them happier.
So here's an interesting, and this may be too much of a rabbit hole to wrap up in one episode. I wonder what the correlation is, or where these two lines converge or diverge. When you talk about overwhelming number of Americans don't want to drill on ANWR, but maybe 2% of them will ever go there. I would venture to guess that that's really similar to the number of people who don't want to tax billionaires because they think they might be a billionaire someday. But less than 1% of those people will ever be a billionaire.
Oh, I don't know anybody that thinks that. That's interesting.
Oh,
I can't imagine going like, oh, I don't want to tax billionaires because I might become one. That just seems.
There's a lot of interesting data to suggest that that's why people identify. Here, it's right here. The economic other. I'll send you the info. But
Okay.
Americans are really this is a researcher out of UW-Madison. And Americans are really great at thinking that they have a better chance of being a billionaire than ever being poor. So when we talk about uh,
Really?
oh,
That's
absolutely,
just so strange. What a strange viewpoint.
very much
The
like people.
avenues, like the trails that lead to poverty are so much more beaten down and well worn and
Yeah,
like than the ones that lead to being a billionaire.
but there's probably a correlation between people who want to protect Anwar, but will never go there. It, that's the human mind. Like, hey, I need to protect this thing that I can never achieve on the off chance that someday I might, just so I have the chance to dream about it.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, I'm open to that. But like the reason I want to protect the boundary waters is not because I might go there someday. It's just like I like the idea that it's there.
Sure.
And I like to think about people enjoying it. I like to hear stories of people that go there and enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
I'm working my ass off to protect hunting access in a bunch of several states that I have no ambitions to ever hunt. Just
You're
because it's
probably
like
in
I like to think of my fellow hunters having positive experiences, you
you're
know?
probably in the minority. We are probably in the minority.
How is that, man? I'm just not like the Mother Teresa of hunting. There's got to be people out there that you look more like we're not the Mother Teresa of like. There's got to be other people out there that just care about their fellow man. I mean, could you imagine what society would be like? What society would be like if we weren't resting on the shoulders of people that um just did the right thing even though they weren't getting paid to do it.
Oh, uh,
It seems
I
like
can't.
that's the
Yes,
legacy that like that's why we're here is because a bunch of people in the past did the right thing even though they weren't getting paid to do it.
I think you underestimate the the power of the image in the average American's mind of rugged individualism and how each person is solely responsible for their own destiny. I think you underestimate that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and and then I think about Instagram comments that I see sometimes that are very reflective of that mindset.
Yeah. It's very American. Rugged individualism and, Ronald Reagan and like that is a mindset that is very prevalent. And I mean, I'm looking at a picture on my wall. I used to ride bulls. So when I was
Oh,
younger,
really?
I rode bull.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, when I was 16, there was a girl, she was a barrel racer, and I followed her to a rodeo, and the next thing I knew, I asked my parents to sign the permission slip to ride bulls, and they said no, so I did it anyway. Uh, but what is more individualistic of an effort than riding a bull? But at the same time, without a stock contractor to raise it, without a bullfighter to help me when I got hung up, without a guy to open the gate, and without somebody to make the hay to feed the bulls, none of that happened.
Right.
None
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. You wouldn't be
Like
doing it if there wasn't several hundred people up there in the stands watching you either.
right.
Yeah.
So even the most individualistic thing you can think of
Imagine.
requires
Yeah.
a community.
Yeah. Yeah. The rugged individualist thing, it's like, hey, man, I enjoy my freedom. I enjoy going out and doing shit, being by myself, um, charting my own course, all that. But it's not going to bode well, like, if everyone's just looking out for number one. When you got 9 billion, is it 9 billion people on the planet?
It's too many billion. That
I mean, if everyone's just looking out for number one with that many souls, it's just not going to end well, man. You know,
Yep.
that's why, I don't know. That's why I'm glad people like you are like trying to provide some leadership.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, if I satisfactorily answered your question, I'm gonna go eat some dinner.
Sounds great.
All right. Hey, this was fun, man. Wishing you the best of luck. And please let me know what happens with
Knowles-Nelson Stewardship Funds.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Right on. It's been fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it very much. Have a great weekend and good luck with your race.
Sounds great. We'll see you in the Boundary Waters someday.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Take care.